first time I went to Florence, I visited most of the tourist attractions that everybody goes to. We're talking like the cathedral and the Uffizi and the Ponte Vecchio, the kind of thing that everybody knows Florence for. This being the second time and me being on my own, I thought I'd go and visit some of the places I hadn't been to before. Sort of made sense. I hadn't actually been able to get into them, and why would you go back to the same tourist attractions if you're not in a place for very long the second time around? So this photograph is taken inside the Pitti Palace. Obviously, that is still quite a popular tourist attraction, but it's not exactly at the level of we're talking like the cathedral or the Uffizi Gallery. It's on the other side of the river to the older part of Florence. The Pitti Palace is kind of was built as a palace for the Duke of Tuscany, and eventually the King of Italy lived in it for a short period of time as well. So this is the interior courtyard once you go in. The main reason that I wanted to go into the Pitti Palace is because of the gardens in the grounds, the Boboli Gardens, which there will be quite a few photographs of that as well. They are huge and they are very, very beautiful. As you can probably kind of tell as some of these photos as well as they're going along, the weather started to turn a little bit. I'd been very, very lucky up until this point that it had been unseasonably warm, considering it was autumn and very, very sunny. It starts to get a bit grey in some of these photos, and then the next couple of days it was a bit clouded over, and I'm pretty sure it rained at one point as well. But yeah, anyway, this is the interior courtyard of the Pitti Palace itself. I mean, it's just a photograph I thought I'd take because we've got the symmetry of the two statues in the background there and the archway in the middle there, which leads up to the top of this bit. You see there are actually railings you get up there, and that's the gardens in the background. That's actually a fountain in the background, not on the roof of this. It's literally above. It kind of goes up the side of the hill. So yeah. So as you can imagine, it being a palace, it's full of golden stuff, paintings, statues, architecture, just sculpture, an awful lot of things that cost an awful lot of money, which makes sense since royalty used to live in here. So yeah, we had a wander around, or I had a wander around inside of the building itself. It's interesting. I mean, if you're into this kind of thing, then yeah, it's pretty interesting. I like history, so what I was more interested in is seeing the rooms where famous historical people had lived or slept in or stayed, or things had happened, that kind of thing. So you could go into a bedroom that used to be the room that the first king of Italy slept in, and another one where his wife used to live in, yeah, it was very interesting. Here we've got one of the statues. I don't really know why I took a picture of this particular statue. There was loads of them that look kind of like this. I just assume it was probably the lighting on this one was particularly good. Probably a window behind me giving a little bit of light in. As you can imagine, shooting indoors on a medium format TLR with relatively average ISO film with no flash is pretty difficult to kind of work out exposure. So I'm guessing that's why I decided to take a picture of this particular one, because the lighting was actually quite nice. Plus, I mean, you got all the gold around and everything. Gives a nice example of I suppose what these rooms looked like. This photo could have been a lot better. I've obviously tried to take a photograph of the view that you can get from the back of the palace. We've got the cathedral there in the distance, and that's the on the right hand side. That's the Palazzo Vecchio, the tower there, a tower which I have been up as well. In fact, I've been up the top of that cathedral dome, and I've been up the top of the Campanile next to it. Basically, I've got a thing about anytime I go to any city, I climb up the highest thing and get a nice viewpoint, because why else would you go to a city with a big tower and not go up the top of it, But yeah, this is awful, isn't it? We've got a bit of the building at the left-hand side. I got a bit of roofs in the way. Basically, I just climbed up onto some steps to get as high as I could, and I couldn't get any higher. And I'm not a particularly tall person, so this is what we've got. A lot of sky, a few of the landmarks, and yeah, roofing. It's crap. Here we go into the gardens themselves. So the Giardini di Boboli are the ornamental gardens at the back of this palace. They are very, very large. They are very, very beautiful. These steps going up into the distance up there go really, really high up. It's really quite steep. We're talking Tuscany, so it's hilly. There's lots of hills, rolling hills, and yeah, these gardens are set across like one of the hills basically is entirely these gardens. Yeah, I just like I just liked the way that the lines actually lead in this one. We've got the pathway leading through the middle there towards this massive obelisk thing. I'm pretty sure there's a fountain with an obelisk in the middle of it, and then we've got, symmetry on either side again. We've got the trees. We've got some of these masonry kind of stonework things on the side there as well. Annoyingly, we've got some tourists stood there on the left. I actually did see very few people when I was here. Probably the time of year that I was here meant that there was very few people actually walking around. There were some, clearly. But some of the images that I managed to take later on, you wouldn't get in the summer. There's just no way you would find any part of this that wouldn't have tons of people in. But yeah, I think this is quite nice. Show you about the clouds over sky. Like I said, it started really getting very overcast this day. This is an image I really quite like. Again, this is just one of those ones where there's not really anybody about. I think you can make out some people at a very far distance, perhaps. I'm sure that's maybe someone walking in the distance, but yeah, it's just walking through the gardens and these trees, sort of the way they've been made to grow, so they sort of create this little tunnel canopy kind of effect. Yeah, this is the kind of photography I like. If you've seen any of my photographs, you know I like leading lines, and I like symmetry, and I like minimalism, and this is something I really I'm quite happy with the image in the end. Obviously, it's a little bit dull. It's a relatively overcast day, like I keep saying, so there's not a lot of light. And, it's not really quite the point of autumn where all of the colours in the leaves have changed, so it's still very uniform green. If it was maybe probably a few weeks later, you'd probably be getting some golds and browns and reds in there as well as a nice mixture, and that probably would look a lot nicer. But other than that, I am very happy with how this image turned out. Not so happy about this one. I've obviously gone for the same kind of effect where I'm just looking for some leading lines and symmetry on either side. Don't think it's really worked in this particular instance. I've obviously decided to take it close to the ground, which means that instead these trees on either side look like they're absolutely gigantic and looming over the top of us. Got that fountain in the middle, nicely centered, but then there's this building in the background which doesn't really add much to it. The sky is pretty overblown. The sides of either image, either side of the image, and the trees, pretty much the shadows are completely gone as well. You can't really see anything on the far left or on the far right. I probably could have done something better with this, but at the same time, if I went back there, I probably wouldn't even take this image. I'd probably look for a different composition entirely. This one I quite like, but mainly because there's some nice reflections in there, and we've got a heron in the middle of the photograph. Again, like I said, there was no one around, absolutely no one around, which meant that there was like wildlife, like this heron, just hanging about and not remotely scared of humans. So I just stood here and took a few photographs. I took a photograph on my Yashica. I'm pretty sure I took a couple of digital photographs as well, tried to zoom in just to see if I could get a better shot of the heron itself. I don't think it came out very well in the end. But yeah, this is like a little pond in the middle of one part of the gardens. We've got this fountain on the right hand side there with some statuary on it, and we've got the repetition of the stonework there, and then obviously the symmetry of it being reflected in the water, which is something I always like about water. And then this heron in the middle as well, which I think adds something nice to the image. Like I keep saying, the place was not deserted, but very few tourists were around. And what I really liked about these gardens was just little things you could find like this. Just walking among some trees, just a clearing opens up, and there's just this little fountain, just on its own, a few bits to sit around next to it. You can see water by there. It's overflowing. It was overflowing. It's really old, and you can see the top. There's literally grass growing in the top of it, causing the water to cascade down on the right hand side, and then just flowing out and down the hill. Big puddle on the right hand side there. I'm not super fussed about this image. I don't think it's fantastic, but I do like how you can see practically individual water droplets dropping down off that fountain. I do like that effect that I've managed to catch there. Again, it's nicely central. You've got some symmetry of these benches sort of placed all around the thing, and you've got the leading lines of the pathway leading up to it as well. So it's very much an image of mine. It's my kind of style. But again, it's just a photograph. It's not what I would say is good, and it's not what I would say is bad. This one I'm pretty disappointed with. Again, it's one of those things where I'm not particularly tall, so I've tried to take a photograph of this building in the distance on the top of one of the hills away, and we've got like this farm or this villa as well in the sort of middle ground, and all these trees and just the countryside basically of Tuscany itself. This is taken from the top of one of the hills in these gardens where you can see kind of beyond the gardens and into the actual countryside of Tuscany itself, away from the city. But because I'm not particularly tall, we've got this big old fence right in the middle of the frame, sort of the bottom third of the frame that's blocking off. Even better, it's out of focus, so it looks blurry and horrible. Yeah, very disappointed with how this came out. If that was cut off, it probably would look relatively nice. If I was a bit taller, I probably could have, got that out of there and managed to get a lot more sky or maybe something more interesting in the foreground. But yeah, a little bit disappointed. And the final image is taken from the top of those steps in, I think, either the third or fourth image that I showed. So yeah, this is looking back down towards the palace itself. That's the Pitti Palace in the middle there. You can see sort of Florence itself in the distance there, the main city there in the distance. A lot of sky. You can see it's brightened up a little bit. You can actually see that the city is a bit more in sunshine than where I am stood. So there's a nice gradient of differences of light there. Again, symmetry is something that I really, really like about this, but that tree on the right-hand side is annoying me because it's making it asymmetrical, and I don't want that. Other than that, image is okay. I guess it kind of shows a nice picture of what these gardens look like. But other than that, yeah, that tree is really, really irritating. As usual, thanks very much for watching. If you want to like or subscribe, the usual things are going to be floating about my head by here. Also, if you want to see some different type of videos, I've put up one recently about me developing some film at home, and also one talking about one of my cameras. There are going to be some new ones as well of me going around taking some photos and then showing you what I've taken afterwards when they come back from the lab. But other than that, stick around, like and subscribe as usual, and I'll see you at the next video. Thanks.